Hi, I'm David with EV World News. We talk about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. And I'm here today with our founder and chief editor, Bill Moore. How's it going today, Bill?
I am here. I got my walk in this morning bright and early while it was only 76, 77 degrees this morning. It's going to be like 96 or 97.
Oh,
And
yeah,
a,
yeah.
and a heat index. I mean, it's been crazy the last few days here. And of course, it's all the corn's fault. You know that, don't you?
The corn sweat.
It's the corn sweat. Right. That's what's causing it all. Yep.
Whatever that is. I keep hearing about that. I know it's supposed to get down below 80 degrees for like a week straight, starting
I know. I know.
tomorrow.
The Sarpy County Fair starts, I think, today or possibly this evening, and I'm signed up to participate at a booth. I won't say what kind of booth, but at a booth for 2 of those days. So I'm glad that the temperature, because in the evenings I'll be doing it. So I'm glad that the temperature is going to be down at a reasonable level.
Yeah, this has been a rough few days. Um, Yeah, I've got a tennis tournament in St. Louis this weekend, and last year it was right around 98 to 100 each day. This year it's like 78 to 82 each day.
Oh my God, that's be
Yeah, so
perfect.
that'll be
Yeah.
much nicer, much nicer. Anyways, we'll go ahead and get started. We're supposed to have a special guest today, but he seems to be AWOL. So we'll go ahead
Oh,
and we'll talk about some other things. Um, I had kind of a funny one. One of my friends sent me an article about Toyota is really getting farther along on their 745-mile solid state battery. And what's funny
okay.
is the article came from Top Speed, and I'm pretty sure who the guy or the lady who wrote the article, she may have never driven a car. I'm really, sometimes you see these articles and they'll say something. It said like, because the battery will be smaller, you can have more passengers. And I'm like,
What?
yeah, yeah. And it was talking about how the batteries take up floor space. And it's like, what? You don't have the trend, the axle hump in an EV. You already have more floor space in an
Oh,
EV
yeah,
than you do
yeah, yeah.
normally. And I'm sitting there like, I'm not sure this person has ever driven a car. They probably,
Certainly
or if they've,
not. Certainly not an EV.
yeah. So it was just kind of funny, but it is interesting. I mean, a 740-mile battery, I mean, that's like 1,100 kilometers. I mean, that's a lot of range. Now, you and I have talked about this before. Is it really necessary? But in
Yeah.
this particular case, if the battery is half the weight of a 300-mile battery and, takes up half the space, that certainly does have its advantages, right?
Well,
So
yeah, it has its
that's a lot of
advantage.
the reason for the range.
Particularly, if you can get if that particular size battery could be 700 and whatever it is miles of range, why not cut the cost of the car, reduce the battery to 300 miles range, which is about, we've
Yeah.
talked about the bladder range of a human being,
Mhm.
and if it can quick charge in 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever, why do you need 700 miles of range? Who drives 700 miles of range nonstop?
Well, I've heard Musk say he could already put a 700-mile range battery in the car, just make it too heavy.
Yeah.
And in this particular case, they're saying they're fixing that problem. And but they're talking about maybe like in a busy Forex or something like that, which would still be pretty impressive. But I just thought that was really interesting. It's
Get
like
more passengers in.
get more
Okay.
passengers in there, and I'm just like,
Well, no,
you know,
she could have ridden in something like a Chevrolet Volt, right?
mhm,
Where the way that the battery is designed, you can only really get about 4 people in that car because of the fact that there's a hump in the back for extra battery and it's kind of a T-shaped thing. And so, if she's ridden in one of those, then yeah, I could see if you get rid of that back battery and condense it all, you could make it a 7 passenger. But we already see those. So, what do you want more passenger wise?
I don't know. It's just a really odd thing. Um, yeah, according to her bio, she's an enthusiastic about been enthusiastic about vehicles her entire life, and her favorite car is a '69 Ford Mustang.
Okay. That, yeah, I could see that. Sure.
Yeah, I'm just
I'm
confused
guessing
as to
she's.
whether she's been in a car. So, anyways, it's just
How many
kind of
people
a
can you get in a '69 Ford Mustang? Maybe
probably not a
five if you
whole.
squeeze.
I don't
Two
know
and two in the front
that.
in the buckets, and three and one sitting on the hump. You know.
Yeah, if they were small enough. I mean, I guess if people are small enough, you can get lots of people in a car, right?
Well, yeah.
But
Remember the Volkswagen? Remember? Oh, you're too young. You wouldn't remember the
uh,
Volkswagen craze. How many college kids can you fit in a Volkswagen?
yeah, yeah. Before they did seatbelts, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it was all. How many can you try to squeeze as many human beings into a car, right? And I don't know what the record was. It was probably 10 or 12 kids or something like that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I just thought this was kind of interesting because I'm like, really? Put more passengers in a car? You know, maybe you could put some heavier passengers in a car. I
Yeah.
don't know. I just thought that was, you know, an unusual.
Unusual take on the situation, huh?
Yeah, I did not expect. All right, so I've got something else that because I cover a lot of Indian energy news. Okay.
Well, for obvious reasons
Yeah. Yeah.
that our
Well.
readers might not be aware of, but Dave
Yeah.
has contacts within portions of
Yeah.
the Indian government. So we'll put it
Right.
that
Right.
way.
But it's you know what about one out of every six people on the planet is Indian? It's the
Oh,
biggest
yeah.
country in the world.
Yeah.
And
Great,
the,
great food. What more can you say, right?
well, I don't know about the great food part. People can take their Indian food and do what they want with it. Yeah, I can't eat it. I'm allergic to almost everything they eat.
Oh no, that's too bad because
Yeah, so
it's
yeah,
really good stuff.
yeah, um, yeah. It mainly gives me headaches really fast,
Oh well, okay.
and it's just no fun. Anyways, America is slipping behind India's clean power boom.
Mm-hmm.
Until 2011, up until 2011, the United States was about the sole clean energy superpower. The US led the world in connecting wind and solar to the grid. Then China took over to a point where it now looks like it's unassailable. The People's Republic added 8 times more renewables than the US last year.
Yeah, yeah,
This year, India should pass the US.
yeah.
Um, India connected.
Courtesy of a narrow-minded bigot, but we won't go there.
All right. The country connected 22 gigawatts of wind and solar just in the first half of the year. That's a lot of wind and solar. Oh, yeah.
Well, think of all the whales they're killing. Dang it.
Yeah. I don't think they're doing any of this wind out on the ocean. That one was kind of a weird one. It's like, is it really killing whales? I know that the wind, kills birds. Okay. Some reason the birds are too stupid not to get hit, but so do the bridges across the Missouri River. I mean,
Well, tall buildings.
Yeah,
Cats kill more.
birds.
Family pet
Yeah,
cats kill more birds than wind turbines. So
I know. It's some things get a little absurd sometimes in some of the
arguments.
arguments.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, 22 gigawatts of wind and solar. I mean, that'd be 44 for the year. We were talking about one day about how solar adds almost a gigawatt of capacity worldwide every 15 hours.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And so that's a big part of it. But if if China's doing 8 times what India is doing, and the US is doing that. So if you had 22 gigawatts wind and solar, just those three countries alone would be 220 gigawatts in the first half of the year, in the first 180 days. So
Yeah.
pretty, and that's only 3 countries out of 180 something, even though those would be the top three, right?
But, but,
Hmm.
according to an op-ed that I put on the website this morning, there's no way that wind and solar will ever replace petroleum, oil, natural gas, fossil fuels. No way it's going to happen.
What was the reasoning?
So, well, because there's all the cars need it, and all the buses need it, and all of the chemical processes, the plastics, and all of that stuff. You can't do that with electricity. So
That's
we
true.
still have
Well,
to have that.
I'd agree with that on the plastics. Okay. But we already know that for vehicles, there's,
Yeah.
for most use cases, I don't know about ever being a complete 100% doing away with fossil fuels as fuels, but at some point they're not going to be that relevant anymore.
Well, no, we won't be. Which brings us to
Hmm.
United Nations Secretary Guterres, right?
Hmm.
Who said that recently in an address, and this I put it on the website, and it's gotten a lot of international coverage, that the fossil fuels are running out of road, and he's encouraging nations to, you know, stop supporting the development of more and more fossil fuels and start converting and shifting over to renewables, which we see in India, which
Hmm.
we see in China, and yes, we even see it in the United States, because despite the comments coming out of the Oval Office,
Hmm.
the most economic form of energy that we have now are renewables, starting with wind and solar are the most economical forms, and yet we hear comments in front of God, in front of the Prime Minister of England, our Prime Minister of Great Britain,
Hmm.
saying to the effect that no, wind is more, it's driving Wales nuts and it costs more, and all this. I don't know who's briefing this man, but they're doing a really terrible job of briefing him. But anyway, I guess he doesn't. He actually, from what I understand, he doesn't read briefs anyway. So
Well, we had an investor for nuclear that had made a commitment and then backed out. Um, Sizable. We're talking very sizable commitment,
yeah.
and he's in the oil and gas space. And he came back and said he couldn't do it because we're going to destroy the planet with, fourth generation nuclear. And he's actually got a famous slogan that's used a lot in the United States. I'm not saying who he is, but I'm just saying he's a very influential person in the oil and gas space.
Okay.
And I'm just like, we think the truth is he had people in the oil and gas space put pressure on him
Oh,
not
yes,
to
of course.
get involved, but because it's obviously it's a direct competitor to diesel. But it was been really interesting to see how territorial some of this gets. On the flip side, if you look at the Saudis, right? The the Saud family may be the wealthiest family in the world, and they're investing in electric cars, and they're built and manufacture of electric cars.
And electric air taxis and things of
Hmm.
that nature. Yep.
Yeah, they're investing in all kinds of things that aren't necessarily using fossil fuels. And I think it only makes sense when somebody's in that energy space to diversify, because you really a lot of the stuff we talk about in the future is speculation, right? There was no way to know 20 years ago that electric vehicles would be taking over the way they are. Okay, and there could be speculation that there was all kinds of EVs that came out that never went anywhere, right? It just never
Yep.
took hold, and all of a sudden, Tesla really, for some reason, they made it cool
The
to
oil
drive
and
an
the oil
electric
and
car.
gas the oil and gas industry killed the first round, the first iteration, which was the electric cars that were built for the California zero
Hmm.
emission mandate. It was the California, I forget the West Coast Petroleum Association or something like that, that got the car makers to kill their programs. The head of General Motors at the time said the dumbest decision he ever made was killing the EV1, their first
Hmm.
really successful in terms of the modern version of electric car. Was canceling that program, and that was all brought on by the Oil and Gas Western Petroleum Association or whatever it was called back then.
Well, I realize Musk isn't the original founder of
Oh no,
Tesla,
no.
but if it weren't for Musk and his crazy attitude about a lot of things, we still wouldn't be where we are with electric vehicles.
Yeah, that's pot. We can't go back. Would Martin and Mark been able to pull this off and get it? Maybe,
Probably not.
but maybe not either. So I mean, we can't change history. History at this point is what it is.
I know, but
We
you look
got
at how
we
many
we we
people have
got
tried.
we
A
got
lot
we
of people
got.
have tried.
Oh yeah, we got Elon, and for good or bad, well, that's kind of like we are. That's the way we are as humans. There's
Right.
a good side of us, and there can be a bad side of us, and unfortunately, something starts to tip, whether it's the pressures or whatever, and people start doing some really crazy stuff. So in Elon's case, there's a
Yep.
really there's I watched a really interesting video where they were talking about how the Silicon Valley guys, the Thiels and the Andreessens and the Musks,
Hmm.
and the Mark Cubans and things of the world. And I don't think maybe so much Mark Cuban, but these other guys have this sci-fi view of the future.
Hmm.
So Musk has this idea that we got to go to Mars and put people on Mars as a lifeboat just in case, the Muramura or whatever these things are that are flying through the solar system now just happen to hit the Earth and wipe us out, right?
Hmm.
But it's an illusion based on what we think the future should be, not that can actually be that way. And so the whole kind of political agenda of what do they call that, effective altruism and cryptocurrency and all this stuff they've been maneuvering for is based on this view of the world that was shaped in their heads as young people by sci-fi. Either it was Star Trek or it was Heinlein before that or whatever. And that's how they're trying to get to this future.
Hmm.
This through the use of a benevolent AI eventually, right?
There you go.
Uh, and we'll get the benevolent AI to call all the shots, and the world will be better. Well, in the case of Mars, just do a little research on the people are saying there ain't no way we're going to put people on Mars. It is totally uninhabitable. You can put people there, and they might live in their spacesuit in that little bubble, things like that. But the place is toxic. You just can't live there, and certainly not a million people or whatever Elon wants to get there because he thinks he can terraform it. Can't be done. Let's work on terraforming Earth. Okay.
Well, the assumption is we can't do it now.
Yeah, we can't. We won't be able to do it then because the planet just isn't conducive. What are you going to do? Take Musk's suggestion and nuke it? So
I don't
so
know.
so I'd rather go with Robert Zubrin and some the other people are coming out and say, hey, let's it's interesting to explore. It's interesting to get photos back. I mean, I've looked at I spend hours looking at the photos that have been accumulated by NASA. That show this where the various rovers have been. It's fascinating. It really is.
Well, you'd
But
think if we could do something there, we could do something on the moon.
Oh, it's even less so.
Yeah, I mean, I would think Mars would be much more challenging to do something than the
Well,
moon.
yeah, because look, it takes what? It takes a half hour, roughly, depending on where the planet, where Mars is in its orbit,
Mhm.
to get a message back and forth. So you say, hey, we got a problem here. There's a storm coming in. What should we do? An hour later, the reply gets to you. It's just,
Yeah.
you got all those, unless we can figure out, the warp speed and subspace and
Well,
all this kind of,
that's what I'm
yeah.
getting at is at some point there's probably going to be greater improvements in transportation.
Oh, well, that's all. There's a guy here in Omaha that
Hmm.
has come up with, he says, is a space propulsion system. And I know really it's more a space attraction rather than propulsion because, there's
Hmm.
Newton's law. For every action, there's an equal opposite reaction, right? Well, this is kind of the reverse of that. This is attraction. So this thing
Hmm.
keeps getting attractive, right, to move it through space. And he said with this system, you could conceivably get to Mars in I think it was 2 weeks, something like that, rather than 2 months or 3 months, whatever.
Yeah, well, that would make a big difference. Yeah, they're probably going to figure out some way to make fossil fuels burn at 100%, so they'll be useful.
Well, you're going to have to go over to Titan to tap into the methane, and the liquid petroleum that formed the lakes on Titan, and then build a pipeline,
Yep. Um,
or orbital spaceships that are the equivalent of, oil tankers. I don't know. Anyway, we're really getting off the track. Sorry,
yes, we
people.
have. All right. You said you had some articles for us to cover since our special guest didn't show up today.
Well, yeah, there's a good article that you'll find again on the website that talks about virtual power plants, and so they were talking about that. Should we spend money building peaker plants, which are basically these natural gas plants that come on when there's like today, for example, for air conditioning here in the Omaha area? Do we have peaker plants that'll come on and provide us with the electricity to keep the grid up running and stable? Or does it simply make sense to focus those investments into, for example, vehicle to grid and vehicle to what's some of the other terms that we have, um, where you're
Microgrids, virtual
microgrids
power
and, and
plants.
and and things like that. Should we focus on that? Because they say, look, a peaker plant, you spend all that. I forget the number. They gave some numbers in it. You spend all that money in a peaker plant that only runs 1% of the time and it's off 99.
Hmm.
Right? Is that a
I,
smart thing? Or do
I
you,
think what
or
you really need to make virtual power plants and stuff work and V2G work real well is you have to incentivize people to be charging at work
absolutely,
because that's when
absolutely,
power is really going to get used is in the afternoons
right?
and stuff like that so that all the EVs are connected to chargers and
And
the
and
grid
doing
can
their
pull
and doing
power
their thing,
back.
shuttling
Yeah.
power back and forth. Yep.
Yeah, folks, if you don't understand what we're talking about, the concept is that you would be able to sell the energy in your
Yep.
battery to the power company at a premium, and then you would charge back up at night when electricity is the cheapest. And then you'd sell it back to the power company during the
Right.
day when air conditioning is being used. A lot more things are being used in businesses and different things. So you'd actually make money with your EV and it would help support the grid and require less
Yep.
infrastructure.
So those are what we call virtual power plants. Well, that, and if you've got a home, like you do, Dave, you've got solar backup with that, where
Mhm.
you've got some batteries, either Tesla or whoever you happen to pick as your provider, and you can use that power. So this is what they're talking about. Let's, instead of focusing on building these natural gas peaking plants, which is a debate we've been having here in Omaha, let's take a look at finding ways to encourage technologically and economically the use of these virtual, because you got all these cars running around.
Mhm.
Make use of, I've got two of them sitting upstairs with a combined Wow, 66 and 24. What is that? 70?
90.
90? Oh, yeah. Sorry. I got 90 kilowatts of power sitting up there doing nothing right now. Let's put that to
Right.
work. Find ways to put that to work.
Yeah, and the challenge though is having a bidirectional charging, because when
Yeah.
we talk about people having charging set up at home, it's not really that expensive to have a level 2 charger at home.
No.
But if it's a
No.
bidirectional charger, it adds about
Right.
an extra $1,000.
That's a different story. So if so I'm sure somebody has figured out the economics here. What was it cost to put that kind of charger in? How do we get the utility company to reimburse us for the power that they use? That and maybe that's where AI comes in. AI kind of starts to figure those things out as well. So I think we got some really interesting areas to explore, that we don't have to be just simply pumping more CO2 and nitrous oxide into the atmosphere to meet our energy needs.
Right. Um, let's see. So one of the things is it's a challenge with just basic, you're level 1 charging, it's only pumping a little more than a kilowatt, right? It's like 1.25 kilowatts per hour. I'm not sure what 220 does in reverse, because I know that you need the bidirectional charger to be able to put more power in. Because if you were just like connecting to like your Ford pickup, you're normally only plugging it into a 110, but the Ford could accommodate multiple 110 jacks going back to power things. The
Mm-hmm.
problem is powering your house, you have to have
Different,
it coming in
different,
on a 220.
different story. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know enough about electricity to explain that piece. Probably more of a Mike topic.
I think
But
that's the topic for you and Mike tomorrow.
yeah, but anyways, it's interesting to see that. But the virtual power plant idea makes a lot of sense. And people don't see this coming. People all think, oh, the grid's not ready for electric cars. It's like, actually, the grid needs electric cars.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a solution for a problem that people don't realize the solutions that EVs can create. So that's
And then
pretty
and
cool
then
thing.
then kind of tied to that is in the second quarter of this year here in the
Mhm.
United States, 4,200 fast charge stations were installed.
In what time period?
4,200 in the second quarter of this year.
Wow, that's starting to get some progress.
That's starting to get some serious progress. Yeah.
Well, I saw somebody with some video on YouTube talking about how California drivers, they're having trouble. They're going to a charging station. There's a line of cars now, and some of the chargers don't work. And it's like, of course, they're
Well,
not driving Teslas. I tell people all the time they're concerned about getting an EV, and like, well, as long as you charge in the Tesla network, you're probably not going to have the bad experience
right,
that
right.
other people have. So,
Well, I
um,
saw something too that charge point, and I wasn't able to link to it. I think it was behind a paywall or something like that. That's indicated that ChargePoint is now starting to be proactive in checking their charge stations before they fault out, which I think is obviously a smart move. That's our biggest complaint for non-Tesla systems is the reliability. And so
mhm.
if you've got techs now, that was actually one of the things I kind of proposed, that here in Nebraska we had for about a decade. We had a program that taught high schoolers how to build and race electric cars, and these were, when I say car, they're really like go-karts, right? They would build, and they were really creative. These were not, take a go-kart and electrify it. These were really creative, streamlined, aerodynamic things that these kids were building. But we were teaching them, and they did that for about 10 years. And then the power company decided to move on as electric cars became more and more popular. So what I thought would be kind of interesting is if instead of doing electric cars, maybe we taught kids how to inspect and maintain electric chargers, car
Hmm.
chargers, and then these kids could, they could earn some, side hustle money by, if there's a problem, go out and report, look at it. Maybe they can't repair it, but at least
I
go out and
remember.
look at it, and and maybe make whatever changes or notify who they need to notify that there's a problem with this particular charger, and try to be more proactive, and have some high school kids doing that.
Yeah, well, remember we had a guy on here who was offering EV training for repairing charging stations, and
Oh, I missed
he,
that one.
yeah, he came on. And he was an original EV1 owner. He was from California. He drove, or I guess he leased one of the
Yeah, I
EV1s.
could only lease it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember because he's in the big German sedan EV. I can't remember what the model is, like
Audi.
EQS 580. No,
Uh,
it's like the EQS, the Mercedes
oh, okay.
EQS, like
Oh,
580, something
okay.
like
All right.
that is what he
Yeah,
drives
yeah,
now.
yeah.
But he's offering these training classes, and he felt that somebody right now that went through their certification could probably make about $75,000 a year with this certification going around fixing charging stations. Of course, you'd have to be in a part of the country where there's lots of charging
Where there's
stations.
lots of charging stations. Yeah.
So we're not that part yet. You know, I'd like
Well,
to think there's not enough work for even one person around
yeah,
here.
we've got a fair number around the city. Not probably the concentration you'd need to do it as a full-time job,
Right.
but
You know, maybe Kansas City would have enough for a tech, but eventually you'd have a need for a bunch, right? Because it's just a matter of time before there's more and more chargers. But that
and
was,
when you're not doing that, maybe you're installing chargers for people in their homes,
yeah,
or if God, bless, if we could get to the point to where apartment owners could put charging facilities in for their renters.
they had two certifications, one as a low voltage tech, and the other one if you were already an electrician.
Okay, makes sense.
So that
Yep.
there was, it was two, but the low voltage tech was the one that about 75,000. If you were a electrician and you had the other, you're probably
Oh,
making 150, 200.
oh yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah, electricians do really well. It's not the
yeah.
easiest space to get into. It's got an awkward apprenticeship that you have to go through.
There's a
And
gentleman here in town who had done service in the military and had come out of the military, and for I don't know, for several years, he just sort of struggled to find a place. And he eventually got into the apprentice program with the local electricians union.
mhm,
And now he's got, a good job. In fact, then another guy used to be a part of the carpenters union. And he said, well, the problem with the carpenters union, I only work part of the year, and, I have to figure out what I'm going to do in the winter months. He says, I went over and became an electrician with the electrical union. And he says, I stay busy all the time now. It's the best move I ever made. So I guess, kids or guys, if you're thinking of a career, maybe think about, becoming an
electrician.
electrician. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good field, but there's a couple of fields, electricians and real estate appraisers, they have really difficult apprenticeship models. And so they're
Well,
both challenging to get through.
yeah.
Um, and it's some of the rare stuff that there's apprentice programs out there. I think even a real estate appraiser is even tougher because it's just hard because there's not much advantage to the appraiser actually having an apprentice. And so
Yeah.
um, it
Well,
makes
I
it a
guess
difficult thing.
you'd have to know real estate values and finance, and particularly construction technology, and what impacts
Yeah, but
deterioration of a house. And yeah,
the
I can see
problem
a lot
is,
being involved. Yeah.
yeah, but there's a problem in that there's not really, like, if I were going out appraising houses, I don't need somebody to help me. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of a weird
Well, unless you got to
situation.
climb a ladder or something and have somebody hold the ladder for you or whatever.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
appraisers aren't doing that. That'd be a
yeah,
home inspector.
yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just kind of a weird one. But anyways, yeah. So there's some fields out there that are just difficult to get into. Usually, the people that ended up becoming appraisers apprentice under their dad, or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just I think they intentionally did that. All right. Got something about Tesla hit with a setback after attempting to boost sales with snazzy new feature. Tesla says we may have seen peak Model Y sales already. I think that's probably a given. I mean, the Model Y was the best-selling car in the world. It's now there's starting to be a lot more competition for
Yeah,
EVs,
yeah.
and I think it's just tough for it to be
Now, yeah,
in
it'll
that
be
position.
interesting to see. This is supposedly the car that they're going to roll out as their sub. I'm going to say sub 40,000 because the $25,000 cars that ain't going to happen. So now we're talking about something in the 30-ish, under
Mhm.
$40,000, which is going to be a stripped down version of the Model Y. And in fact, I saw a guy today says they're taking out of the Model Y everything you want in the Model Y as an electric car. So the no cup holders. Come on, guys. No glass roof. Okay, I don't have that on. On one of my cars doesn't have a glass roof. The other one does. So
Yeah, the
range
glass roof
battery.
has been a long time thing for Tesla,
Oh
but
yeah,
I could see that. I mean, I'm sure that's a pretty significant chunk of change to put that in versus just having a normal
just
roof.
having a normal steel roof. Yeah. So we'll see. They're talking about it coming out in. I guess there are mules out already on the road that people have photographed and things like that. So I think supposedly by the end of the year, they'll start rolling those out. And we'll see what the price is at that point.
Let's see what we got here. All right. So let's see if we got a picture here of the. Oh, yeah. So watch a Cybertruck dangle in midair thanks to Tesla repair
This
glue.
this is
So
this
there's
is
been these
interesting.
arguments that some parts of Teslas are just glued on, and people are
Right,
complaining about that.
right.
So
The panels,
they're
yes.
lifting the Tesla up by the panels with a crane, and they're holding it up by the glued on parts, just to
Yep.
demonstrate
And
that the
and
glued
and,
on
and
parts
what
will
it
hold
is,
up the truck.
yeah, and what they're doing is they've got up there where you can see the little crane hook. There's a two-part device, and what they did is they took and glued, and I think they said it's 2.5 square inch surface area. There it is. Yeah. So that area between the two of those units has this Furo 2089 or some number like that
Fuser
glue on it.
2098. Fuser
2098.
2098.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2098. And that's how they're holding this. Now, apparently, you just can't put the thing on and stick it in. There's some curing that has to take place and so on. But they were able to lift that truck. Part of it, obviously a stunt by what the website's Jerry Rig Everything, I think it's called. Or is it Jerry Rig? I think it's Jerry Rig, not
Jerry
Jury
rig.
Rig. Yeah. Um, that's how they hold it up. 6,600-pound Cybertruck with just that little bit of glue.
Yeah, the glue has about 3,200 pounds, can handle about 3,200 pounds per square inch. That's that's that's
So
crazy.
your part ought to stay on that Cybertruck once it's glued. So
Yeah, don't
apparently
get
there
this
have been
between
some
your
that didn't.
don't
So
get it stuck between your fingers and never get your
oh
fingers
no,
apart
yeah,
ever.
I can imagine that. What do they do? They would normally take the stuff the ladies take their fingernail polish off with. I think isn't that what
Yeah,
they used to
acetone.
acetone, whatever. Yeah, um,
Hmm.
for what to remove super glue. This is like better than super glue, apparently better than Gorilla Glue.
Yeah, this is um, un unbreakable. Sounds like that's.
Which raises the question: how do you make this stuff?
I don't know.
You
That yeah, yeah. How do you get
that's
it in the tube, right?
that's chemistry beyond my ken.
Yeah. How do you clean the vat that they make it in?
Yeah, exactly.
um, all right. So one of the co-founders of Tesla, Martin Eberhard, says he
Yeah,
calls the Cybertruck calls it a dumpster.
a
So you could
dumpster.
use this crane to lift it up and stick it into, you know, the dumpster.
Yeah,
Oh,
it has a second life. Once you're done with it, and it's been through a couple of wrecks or body panels fallen off or batteries have been recycled, you can put that in the back of your business and use that as a dumpster. Nah, I'm just kidding.
hmm. Yeah. Well,
Now,
they
apparently, I
just
saw a story that they're actually coming up. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But they're coming up with another pickup. They're designing it, and the sketch that was offered wasn't official out of Tesla. It was just a guy playing with, a 3D program. But supposedly there's a successor coming to the Cybertruck that's supposed to be smaller. So maybe they're going the Maverick route. You got an F-150, and the next truck down is the Maverick, whatever. So whether it'll be just a smaller version of Cybertruck, who knows? I hope not. But it
I
generates
could
it
totally see
generates
Tesla
talk.
coming out with a cheaper pickup truck. That wouldn't really surprise me to see.
Well, yeah, that's what supposedly the rumor is, that they're working on a successor now. No, not a successor, a follow-on which is smaller.
Just take the Model Y chassis and put a truck-shaped body on it.
Yeah, but what does that
Um,
truck-shaped body look like? You
yeah,
could
I
do
don't
the old
know.
Camaro. Do the old. No, is it Camaro, Ranchero? Which
Oh,
one was it?
Catalina,
No,
Camino,
no,
El
no.
Camino, El
El
Camino.
Camino. Yeah, you just simply take a sedan, chop the back off, put a flatbed back there, and hey, and it wouldn't surprise me if somebody hasn't already done that with
An
with a
electric
wrecked
one.
Tesla. Yeah, with a wrecked Tesla where they've just simply, got dinged in the back and they just cut it off and make a truck bed out of the back part.
That would be pretty funny. All right. Well, Bill, I think we're good for today.
I think we're good. We've
Folks,
jabbered on long enough. We didn't get our guest on today.
yeah, we
Um,
never had a guest not show up before. So
yeah, first time. So
hopefully they're still in business.
they watched some previous episodes.
Maybe they thought we were going to do a hit piece on them. Who knows?
Yeah.
Well,
Actually, it's a pretty cool products they've developed. At least the drawings are pretty nice. The 3D
yeah.
architectural drawings are really cool.
Well, Bill, we'll just assume they all got laid off and went out of business. So,
Well, yeah, I hope not. I hope they're still running. But
I'm just
in
kidding.
this
Hopefully that didn't
world,
happen.
who knows?
You never do. You never do. All right, folks. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with our engineer, Mike Herzog, tomorrow. Otherwise, I'll see you later.